Welcome to The Crossing. So glad you're here. If this is your first time joining with us, we are so honored to have you here today. Make sure to say something in the chat. We would love to get to know you better. If you're joining in and you attend one of our physical locations, we're sorry that you couldn't make it this week, but we're glad that we can keep you connected while you're away. Here online, we seek to connect people to an intimate, personal relationship with Jesus Christ in any way possible. No matter where you're watching from, we consider you a part of The Crossing. If you need prayer for anything during service, hit the prayer button at the bottom of the screen, and you and I can pray together. If you'd like to take ownership in this service in your church, hit the give button at the top of the page. We've got an incredible event coming up on January 30th where you can join in with the rest of our church through Facebook Live as we do an album release party for our new album, This Is Life. Check out our Facebook page for more information. Together, as we gather around all of our devices across the entire world, let's spend some time in worship before we head into the sermon.
Design the tattered thread by thread. You take the broken and destroy it. You rebuild. You make whole. Joy begin to rise and hope begin to light the dark. I gotta change this hope for New Year's dawn.
Crossing Church, how are you doing? You doing all right? It's good to see you. It's awesome to see you. Well, this is a great weekend, but next weekend is Super Bowl weekend, right? And it's going to, how any Eagles fans? Any Patriots fans? Leave right now. Patriots fans, just leave. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'll tell you what's great about Super Bowl weekend. It doesn't have anything to do with that game. It has everything to do with 30-second theology. And it is the battle royal. It's on. You know, last year, there is no doubt, I completely schooled Clayton Hensel. So we'll see if he can get his manhood back this time and actually get a one in the W column. We'll see. It's always so much fun, and there's all kinds of things that'll be happening. All of our locations, you're going to have a great time. So get ready for that, and make that an opportunity to invite a friend, because you'll have an awesome time. You'll learn about the Lord at the same time. It'll be just great. We're in a series about choices, and we've been talking about like these critical choices, and choices are important because it's those choices that we've made in our past that have helped shape us into the person that we are right now. And the choices that we're going to be making, like today and in the future, well, they're going to have a major role in shaping us into the person that we're going to be. And the choice I'm going to be talking about today is one that's going to hit us all. It's going to be a gut shot, okay? So just be prepared, because we're talking about picking or choosing the important over the urgent. Does that get you? The important over the urgent. You know, there's a lot of conversations that happen on the way to church and going home for church, and while you're seeing someone in one of our lobbies, and in that discussion, when you're talking about your life and the rhythm of life, a lot of times you hear someone say, you know, I just don't have enough time. How many of you heard that before? Or, boy, I sure wish I had some more time. Yeah? You heard that? You said that before? We might even have an entire pre-planned conversation in our heads. So we'll know exactly what to say to somebody, because they might ask us to do something that we don't really want to do. And so what we'll do is we'll have this conversation in our heads that actually proves just how busy we are. How many of you done that before? I've definitely done that before. You just don't hear very many people when you talk to them like that go, man, I can't tell you how I'm just so relaxed. I have got all this margin in my life, and it's just incredible. I mean, you just ask me anything. I'll do it, because it's just so good. You know, I know that we say that and we believe that we wish we had more time or we don't have enough time. But the truth is, we all have exactly the same amount of time in a day, right? We all have 24 hours. The clock doesn't speed up for some of us and slow down for others. So it's really not about whether or not we have time. The real question is, how do I choose to spend it? How do I choose to spend the time? What choices am I making in that time that I have? And am I choosing urgent things over important things? The way I understand this personally, from my own personal life, comes from my junior high years. I got to go back a long way, you know. But in my junior high years, I lived on the west side of Indianapolis in this town of Speedway. You may have heard of that before, because it's the home of the 500-mile race. And I lived a few blocks from that track. And one thing about our school system is that we had no school buses. So you had to figure out on your own how you were going to get to whatever school you went to, whether those were we had a number of elementary schools, very similar to Quincy, Illinois, where you have 4 elementary schools or 5, and we had one junior high and 1 high school. And so we lived close to my elementary school, so when I walked to elementary school, it was no big deal. It was only a few blocks. But junior high was a little different. It was about 2 miles away. And my parents didn't take me or pick me up, but we have city buses there. So they would actually give me bus fare. And I would get on a city bus and ride that city bus to school, back and forth from school. And my mom would give me this amount of money, this particular amount of money, to ride the bus. Not a school bus, but a city bus. Well, a junior higher with money in his hand, with plenty of energy, there were a lot of days I'd walk that 2 miles. And I'd walk back that 2 miles. And I'll tell you why, especially walking back. If I could leave early enough and walk that 2 miles to junior high and then walk back, halfway back, there was a store that had all this candy. They had arcade machines. And all the other junior high kids would be in there, and we would hang out in there, right? And there were times when that was really worth it to me to just have that, not just the social time, but to do all those kinds of things that junior hires were doing back then, not, G and PG, and to be able to enjoy that socialization. But I had that amount of money, and if I got up in the morning, I got up a little late, I couldn't be late to school, I'd have to spend that on the bus. I knew I had that much money, and that was all that I had. And I had to make those choices, right? So, if I made the choice to walk, I got arcade, I got to eat more candy, but those were my choices. We're about to experience an awesome football game. Every year when the Super Bowl comes, we get to watch this football game and all the stuff that's around it. And when you think about football, a lot of it is built around misdirection. Isn't that true? It's trying to get someone to make a choice to go for the ball where it isn't. When you think about it, right? When you fake the handoff, and then you drop back for the pass. When you're looking off a receiver, you know how they do that? Where they're like looking in this direction and then they throw it over here. So the defenders will go over here, but the ball's going to go over here. A lot of football is about misdirection. Trying to make the other team think the ball is where it isn't. And you know what? When it comes to the choice of urgent over important, you have that bank account of time, like my allowance money to ride the bus or eat the candy, right? And you have this choice in front of you that should I go this way or should I go this way? Should I go urgent or should I go important? And I think Satan likes to misdirect us. I think that Satan is like a good football player. He likes to make you think what is important isn't important. I'll say it this way. If Satan can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. How many of you would say, yeah, I can see that? Yeah, absolutely, right? He'll make you busy doing things that really don't matter that much to keep you from the seriously important things that you really are called to do and that you need to do in your life. And that's a misdirection. And then you take that bank account of money and you end up investing it in things that are urgent but not really important. There's a business guru called Seth Godin, and he had a great quote about this. He says, if you choose to do what is important, then there'll be a lot less things in your life that are urgent. And he says, if you choose to do what is urgent, you will miss out on so many things that are critically important. And I think that's some really good advice. So the key is we need to figure out the difference between what is urgent and what is important. And we need to invest our time, this limited amount of time we have, on those things that are important and not be so committed to things that are urgent. There's a situation in the Bible that really helps us to understand this. A great story in the Bible, and some of you, this will be familiar to you. It's in Luke chapter 10, starting in verse 38. This is what it says. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. This was Bethany, not very far from Jerusalem. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him, that's Jesus, and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." There are two very distinct personality types in these two sisters. As a matter of fact, we like to use their names as identification. I don't know how many of you have ever heard say, somebody goes, "Well, that person's a real Martha." Have you ever heard that? How many of you heard that before? Yeah, it's a pretty common term because this story really relates to people who are doers, that are just busy and doing those kinds, that want to just serve, and other people that want to sit and listen and be enthralled by this teaching. We might say one is like a type A person and the other one is maybe a type B person, right? But the real issue here that we need to determine is what is truly important. And I think if we dig down into this story, it'll really help us to understand that in our lives, okay? So let's break it down. Jesus is coming over. Wow. Jesus is coming over. Imagine if that were you. Now, Mary and Martha, they may be thinking that Jesus is the Messiah. They may be thinking by that at that time in his ministry that he's just a great prophet or a great teacher. But there is no doubt that they think he is an incredibly important person. And they want to take the right steps to show how valuable and how important it is to them that Jesus is coming in to their house, right? That's a big deal. And when you have a big deal like that, and we all have these big deals in our lives, preparations need to be made. And so they're making those preparations. Martha is making those preparations. But after those preparations have been made, and there's still things to be done through the process of it, Mary bails. And you can find her right there at the feet of Jesus because she doesn't want to miss a moment of what Jesus is going to be teaching or saying. She wants all of that soaking in. Now look what Martha does. She's really dramatic here. She interrupts Jesus. I mean, Jesus is teaching. She interrupts Jesus because she has this issue with her sister, this drama with her sister, and it has now become a bigger deal in her mind than Jesus' teaching. Like, make my sister help me. She's not helping me. You know, she's doing this because she's considering what is happening here is important. This is important. These preparations are important. But for some people who are like Martha, maybe you would call yourself a Martha. The truth is, everything's important. There isn't anything in your life that's urgent. It's all important. Is that true for you? So you know what we do? We load up our lives with all this stuff, so much of it that we can lose it, we can burn out, we can blow up. Where does that come from? Is that coming from a good place or a bad place? Well, ask yourself this. When Martha's making this decision to interrupt Jesus, which is actually a much bigger deal than just whatever, like if they're going to have some hors d'oeuvres or they're going to have, the people are going to wash their feet before they come in or something like that, and something isn't getting done, do you think Jesus is really caring about that? What he's caring about is what he's teaching. And so what she does is takes a small thing and makes it bigger than the big thing, right? Because to her, it was important. So who was it important to? It was important to her, right? She's worried about it being important to Jesus and everybody else, but it's really important to her. And what did the preparations reflect on? Who did it reflect on? What it reflected on? Her. If the preparations weren't done right, that's her problem, right? And what does her comment to Jesus reflect? Well, that reflects her. She's the one that's upset. She's the one that's offended. It's inside of her heart because the urgent has distracted Martha from what was truly important. Jesus makes it clear that what was truly important was the time that he was teaching and what people were hearing, and she had given in and given away the important for the sake of the urgent. Where does that come from? If it's her and her and her and her, this is a pride problem. All this is a reflection on her. That's a pride problem. Listen, if you are living a life where everything is important, or you're not going to qualify, anything is urgent, but everything's important, that's a problem. It means that that we believe in our hearts that unless we do it, it's not going to be done properly, it's not going to be done right. So, how do I determine what is important over what is urgent? Well, here's the first thing I want you to think about. What are the things that are in your life that only you can do? Nobody else. Those are truly important things. Things that only you can do. I'm going to give you 3 examples in my life, and they should be in many of your lives. This will connect with you. My relationship with God through Jesus Christ, that intimate personal relationship, is absolutely important. And there is no one that can have my relationship with Christ except me. I cannot have that vicariously through my spouse. I can't have it through my friends. I can't have it through my parents. Every relationship with Jesus Christ is unique and individual. That means that nobody else can take your place. There's something that only you can do. That makes it important. Not only does that make it important, it makes it critically important in your life. Here's another one. Only I can be a husband to my wife, at least right now. I don't know if she's looking for anybody, the next one, but right now it's just me. Nobody else can do that but me. That makes it important. That means that relationship that I have with my wife and how I maintain that relationship is critically important. Only I can be a father to my children. Right? Because nobody can replace me in that. That's me. This is just me. So when I think about my relationship to Jesus Christ, I think about my relationship to my spouse, I think about my relationship to my kids. Those things are critically important, my family. And I cannot be significantly distracted from that by urgent things. Because if I do, Satan wins, and I don't want him to win. So I'm going to ask you a question. Which one of those, or is there another one like that you're being distracted from right now? Things that only you can do. Well, that's not that hard. You can figure that out in your life. These are the things that only I can do. So those are going to be like the pillars in your life, all right? Those things are non-negotiable. So like whenever you're like thinking about how you put your calendar together and how you're working with your time, those things need to be plugged in there first. But then there's everything else. And I'm going to call those the not so easy ones, right? Because there's all these other things in your life that are pulling for your time, pulling for your attention, pulling for your energy, right? And those things, many of them are urgent, and so they will crowd out the important. They can do that unless you have a way of living your life and managing your life in such a way to not allow that to happen. So I want to give you some practical ideas on how you can keep the important and you can separate it from the urgent. Okay? Number 1, organize your life around the critically important things first. So if you're thinking about your time, your day, your week, your year, always go to those most important things and say, those are the things I'm going to do. And I'm going to stay in that relationship. I'm going to stay in my relationship with Jesus Christ. It means I'm going to invest myself in the things that get me closer to Jesus Christ. I want to have a quiet time in the morning because I need to have that time with the Lord. I need to pray. I need to spend some time in His Word. I need to spend some time looking at my life and asking God to take care of the day for me. I need to spend time with the Lord. Right? That's not the same as church. There's an awful lot of things that you can do in church that are urgent, but not important. All that church is here for is to help you to develop an intimate personal relationship with Jesus Christ. That's what it's here for. But a lot of times, we can get distracted by urgent things that we're trying to do for God, but we're neglecting the relationship with God. That's turning us into a Martha when we need to be a Mary. We need to definitely deal with that important thing first. How about my marriage? There has to be time for me to be able to cultivate that marriage and make that marriage stronger. There needs to be a date night in the week. There needs to be time when we're together. I remember there were times when the kids were younger, I wanted to go to Israel. The first time we went to, now Allison would get on a plane right now to go to Israel. She's just nuts for the place. But back then, the first time we went, I said I wanted to do this. She said, no way, I'm not leaving my kids. And I said, you know what? Some of the best things you can do is leave your kids. If you want to concentrate on your relationship and on your marriage. And that has been an incredible benefit to us, to have those times when it's just us, when we're together. After that, what are you doing with your kids? What are you doing with your families? How are you setting up vacation time? Prioritize what matters most first. Okay? Do that first. Second thing, learn the law of the bigger yes. Learn the law of the bigger yes. One of Martha's biggest problems is she didn't know how to say no. I wonder how many of you at all our locations struggle with that same thing. It's just hard for you to say no. You don't want to let people down. You're a people pleaser. What's so terrible about being a people pleaser? Well, when you are, you end up saying yes all the time, right? And when you say yes to everything, then you can't get the important things done, and the urgent ends up winning over the important, which means you need to learn the law of a bigger yes. I personally find it very hard to say no to people. So what I learned was this bigger yes idea, which means I tell people what I've already said yes to. Rather than say no to you, I'm just going to say yes to this. And I'll tell you, well, I'm saying yes to this and this and this. And so that's where I'm choosing to spend my time. I think that's actually a great thing to do for a couple of reasons. Not only does it keep your life in order and uncomplicates it, but it sets a great example for others when it comes to priority. If I'm saying, you know what, I'm not gonna do that because I need to have this time with the Lord, or this time with my wife, or this time with my family, or this time doing these other things that are critically important. I'm not saying what you're saying is unimportant, but these are the choices that I've already made. I want to be really selective with my yeses. You need to be ruthlessly selective with your yeses. Oftentimes, the barrier to a meaningful life is being overcommitted. And life just gets lost in that, right? So sometimes we have to learn to say no to the good so we can say yes to the great. So I want you to think about that. The best people in life, they don't do more. They just do more of what matters most. And if you're doing the more of what matters most, those other things are going to kind of fade away, and you're going to have it together a lot better than you would the other way. Here's another one, number 3. Delegate to others what others can do. It doesn't always have to be you. You know, some people would really like a place to play. I've noticed that. Give me an opportunity. Let me show you what I can do. You know what the problem is? Sometimes Marthas are kind of perfectionists because they get a lot of self-worth from this. So it's hard to operate in grace, right? But when you give a person a place to play, anything worth doing, I've said before, is worth doing poorly, right? Because we rarely do everything exactly right the first time. So you have to have grace for that person if you're delegating responsibility, and you need to encourage and give people room to learn and grow. So in your life, if you want to help to uncomplicate and unclutter your life, learn to delegate to other people and then have the grace for them to develop and learn in that. All right? And the truth is, I don't want you to be fooled by this. The truth is, much of what we perceive our personal value actually comes from doing the things that we don't want to let other people do. It's a self-serving thing. Here's another one. Set artificial deadlines, fake deadlines. I think setting fake deadlines is a great thing. If you say, hey, I have to have this done by Wednesday, when it's not really due till Friday, but I have to have it done by Wednesday. Just pre-install margin in that. And if you're going to make a commitment to do something, think about that ahead of time before you say yes. Like, if I can't get this done by Wednesday and have 2 extra days, then I'm going to say no, because then I don't have time. So you're actually pre-putting in margin into that decision, okay? And that'll really help in your life. So I'm talking about some practical things here, just real practical things on choices. But I wanted to get real, all right? So you're going, yeah, thanks, Jerry, for that uplifting message, but I want to get real. Last weekend, I was preached Thursday night, and preached first service on Sunday. And you guys know that I'm dealing with this thing, this physical heart kind of thing, and they've put me on different medications, and I'm just before the first service, and I went a little haywire. But it's like a minute before the sermon. I'm just standing right back there. And it's a minute before the sermon. So I'm coming out here and I'm going, oh, I really hope that I don't side of beef on the floor, okay? So, I'm preaching the sermon. I go back into the green room after that service is over, and I am kind of haywire. These things are, because these medications still aren't quite right. And here I am thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And the clock's ticking. I got a second service. And I got to go to Hannibal on Sunday night, and I've got to do a vision night in Hannibal. What am I going to do? Oh, my. That's what I was doing. And in the middle of that, I called a timeout, a personal timeout, and I go, you know what? They record all these services. So let's just play first service, second service, and I'll go home. Now, there was probably some people that for a second or two were going, where's Jerry? And there was a few people that asked, but most of you look at the screens anyway. And a lot of people didn't even notice. Was he not there? I didn't even know he wasn't there. It's kind of crazy, right? Do you know what I saw in that? What I saw in that is how great a team I have around me that God's provided. All I had to say was one thing to those tech guys back there and gals, and it was ready to go. All I had to do was make a phone call at 3 o'clock to Clayton and say, I need for you to handle the vision night. Got it, Jerry, I'm on my way, no problem. Wow. Nobody missed a beat. And I was able to concentrate on what was important, which was not falling apart up here or something like that, so that I would not be concentrating on what was urgent. Now, I got to be really, really transparent with you here. Make no mistake, that was not easy. Stepping back for me was not easy. The day my mother died was a Sunday. I still preached. I don't step off the stage willingly. That was hard for me to do. But you know why it was hard? The same reason it was hard for Martha. Pride. It was about pride. And maybe some of the time that you're trying to do all these yeses, it's not about the things that you need to do. It's about you, and it's about whatever that is producing inside of you. It was hard on my pride because I have this feeling that I need to be needed. And I think that a lot of times we say yes to these things is because we need to be needed. But you know what? It's so gratifying to know that God's hands are always good hands to be in. And it's going to be okay. You look at Jesus. I just want to close with this. You look at Jesus. I never once see Jesus ever give in to the urgent. Never once. You know, his ministry lasted 3 years. From 30 to 33, right? And every one of the decisions that he made was the important. Every single time. And the most important decision he made was to go to the cross for me and die for me, so that the really important things in my life were taken care of by him, because I couldn't do that myself, right? Now some of you, you've been trying to save yourself your whole life. Your whole life. And you do all these urgent things to try to prove to yourself and everybody else around you that you got it all together. And you don't. None of us do. We're all fragile. We're all broken. And we're all a mess. Whether you put a good face on for everybody or not. The truth is that Jesus is enough. And He's the perfect example of the important over the urgent. And I want to encourage all of you at all of our locations, to be thinking about this moment right now coming up and ask yourself, what's important? We're moving to a time of decision.
The choices that we make define who we are. And I know that I'm guilty of being drowned by the urgent so much that I miss out on what's important. And I'm sure that you're guilty of it too. Right now, there's a decision that you need to make. You can click away. You can be done with service. You can get your imaginary I went to church badge. And you can go about your day because there's more important stuff for you to be doing right now. Or you can take this moment that's been created and use it to change your relationship with Jesus Christ. To push away the things that seem important but really aren't, and learn the law of the bigger yes. God is here. He's with you right now, and you have the opportunity to organize your life around what's critically important, not to your life, but to God's will for your life. To be a better spouse, to be a better parent, a better you, because you chose to be Mary and not Martha. Choose to not let this moment pass you by, and let it change you into something so much better than what you are right now. I'll be here through the rest of service, and I would love to pray with you. Let's use this moment to make the first decision in the right direction towards Jesus. Let's go to Him right now.
My mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see His wounds, His hands, His feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. Pilate's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone, Messiah still and all alone. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. And on the third at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh, temple death, where is your sting? The angels roar for Christ the King. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. Shall return in robes of white, the blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints, my gaze transfixed on Jesus' face. Jesus, you are our risen King, our perfect healer, spotless Lamb. Father, I am so grateful for the grace, the mercy, and the kindness that you pour out upon us. Father, as we continue to sing, oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Let it reign in our hearts. Let the love you have for us swell up inside of us, and let us give all of that to you, all the glory to the name Jesus Christ. When we say for endless days, let that reign every moment of our lives. Father, we sing to you with everything we have. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. Oh Lord our God. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste
perfect submission. All is at rest. I in my Savior am happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with His goodness, lost in His love. Lost in your love. I'm lost in your love. This is my story, and this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. And this is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. And oh, what a Savior, wonderful Jesus. 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 Death could not hold you. You are victorious. Praise to the risen King. Death could not hold you. You are victorious. Praise to the risen This is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. And this is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long.
The ultimate decision for bigger, yes. was God sending his son to die on a cross for our sins. We spend time every week remembering that sacrifice and celebrating that choice by taking communion. Spend these next few moments in prayer, praising Jesus for his sacrifice and thanking God for showing us what a bigger yes looks like. Let's go to him right now. Thank you so much for joining with us today. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with me by emailing joeyh@thecrossing.net for any questions or just to continue the conversation. Also, make sure to hit the give button at the top of the screen, or you can text The Crossing Online to 77977 to give right from your phone. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you next week.